Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Mark Janish, AccessMediaGlobal.com founder, senior writer, and progenitor, if you will. Um, Coming to you on July the 5th, 2018, from a very sweltering Southern California. Temperatures expected to be 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the valley areas of Santa Barbara County. Also, those of us that are near the Eastern Pacific, near the beach, such as myself, we're going to be in the 90s. And the fine folks of the emergency management officials of Santa Barbara County have put out a alert for some very, very warm weather. Happy you're listening on July 5th, 2018. I'm Mark Janish. This podcast and any other podcast can be heard on Libsyn and Stitcher radio platforms. Each and every podcast can also be found at accessmediaglobal.com, top of the page. This is the From the Bench podcast for July 5th, 2018. A little bit of housekeeping circumstances, some issues with Access Media Global. Right now, the issues around Access Media Global, we're going to be returning to more or less regular programming covering baseball. We've been pretty World Cup heavy with the Total Soccer podcast being provided to you, and also some of the group stage games. I did my own podcast, and I'll probably do a couple more. But I believe that the Total Soccer podcast folks, those that produced that program, are doing a fine job, and I'm usually posting those on a daily basis. We return to World Cup coverage on Friday. Friday, specific to the West Coast, 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. as we approach the quarterfinals. The round of 16 narrows itself down as we approach the quarterfinals. But today's podcast, given the fact that Lebron James has returned, or not, wouldn't say returned to Los Angeles, left Cleveland and come to Los Angeles with a 4-year, $154 million contract. Year number 3, I believe, is player option for year number 4. So we have, and we will see LeBron James in a Laker uniform for the next 3 years. Now, whether this is good for the Los Angeles Lakers remains to be seen. Now, it's going to be an economic boom to LA Live, the ESPN Sports Zone, and those that are hanging out on 11th and Olympic trying to park cars at $25 a car. Okay. I myself grew up a Laker fan and spent 19 years up in Seattle, have a tremendous love for the Seattle Supersonics, and hope to see that the Seattle Supersonics will someday return to Seattle. Hopefully will be in my lifetime. But I'm not keeping my fingers crossed, given that the city fathers in Seattle don't find value with sports and have an aversion to publicly financed stadiums. However, the NHL will probably enter into the Seattle market, I believe, 2020. And given the success of the Western Conference champions Vegas Golden Knights, they have some incentive to continue to do so. But that's another podcast for another day. I'm not here to criticize Seattle sports, but having been a resident of Seattle, knowing some of the policies and the politics and some of the aversions of building Safeco Field, which opened on July 15th, 1999, and all the political gamesmanship that went on around that. That's very interesting. It will be very interesting to see what happens with interest regarding the NBA relocation committee under a different commissioner, that, of course, being Adam Silver. As far as the Lakers go, The Lakers were 35-47. Did not qualify for the playoffs for the fifth straight year. They have not qualified for the playoffs since 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012 to 2017. They did not qualify for the playoffs, but I believe that playoff drought will be over despite a very stacked Western Conference with Golden State up in the Bay Area of Northern California, and also the Lakers, the Houston Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs. With or without Kawhi Leonard, I think they'll still be competitive. I do believe the Lakers will break the playoff drought. And they'll win, 50 to 55 games seems plausible. But I wanted to just set the tone for the Lakers. So you have a reasonable expectation. Now, some people are rejoicing in the return, or what they believe to be the return of the Lakers to the NBA promised land of the Larry O'Brien Trophy. But let's talk about what the Lakers are really doing. What the Lakers are really doing is they're setting themselves up for next year to acquire another max free agent. Let me lay this out for you. The salary cap before you pay luxury tax in the NBA is $101.869 million. Okay, you're over 101 million per team. You're paying luxury tax based on how much money is being contractually allotted, team to team, etc. That is to say, a team that has traded a particular star may say to the team receiving that star, hey, we'll pick up X percentage or so many millions of American dollars of the contract, thus minimizing the liability and keeping the receiving teams under the luxury tax. And that's going to be an issue. That was collectively bargained, and we totally get that. We understand where it comes from. We just want you to know that the Lakers are setting themselves up for 2019 to acquire another max free agent. Now, let me tell you why. What we've seen the Lakers do in the last few days, since July 1st, let's say, within the last week, we've seen a good player, but somewhat of a misfit, Lance Stevenson, come to Los Angeles. 1 year, $4.5 million. JaVale McGee, 1 year. Kentavarius Caldwell-Pope, who played for the Lakers last year, I believe he was overpaid. He made, $18, $19, $20 million. He's down to $12 million this year. Not a bad player, but definitely overpriced for what he does. And then, of course, there's the renunciation of the rights of Julius Randle. Julius Randle, 16 points, 8 rebounds last year. A very, very good year. But one of the things that I wanted to mention to those of you who are not necessarily Laker followers at this time, the Lakers had, for the last few years, players that had similar size and similar skill sets. All right? And now on the court, this didn't necessarily translate well, because if you have guys that are 6'7" to 6'8" and maybe 6'10", 6'11" with the Larry Nances of the world, maybe you have like a guys that can go between the 3 and the 4. These guys, these 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys, these guys are what I call tweeners, okay? They're not really big guys. They're not really small guys, but what various teams have been doing, it's not only affecting the Lakers, it's not only the Lakers. I'm not picking on the Lakers, let's put it that way. But for the purposes of this podcast, since this is a Lakers Center podcast, for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the Lakers in this respect. They have a lot of guys that do a lot of the same things. It's like if you had a company, okay, if you were a business owner and you had a lot of employees that could do the same things, what do you try to avoid? Let's talk about duplication. You don't want in your organization, in your organizational flow chart, if you're leading an organization, you don't want people who can do the same things, and then the guy or the gal, the lady or the gentleman sitting next to that person has the same skill set. And I think that was mainly the Lakers' problem, along with Jim Buss, and we won't get into that. One of the things that the Lakers still need to do is either extend Luol Deng's contract, the life of the contract. They owe him like $36 million, but they have an opportunity to extend him to make his contract 5 years, $38 million. If they do it, the extension, which I believe they may do, they have a veteran presence. He's not able to shoot the basketball as well as he once did. He's not necessarily in his prime, but they did get rid of Timothy Mozgov and some of the bad contracts. We all know about D'Angelo Russell not working out as a draft pick. Then they shipped him to New Jersey, getting Brook Lopez. Now, I'm going to comment on Mo Wagner out of Michigan soon, okay, in the next few minutes. But right now, we just want to make the point here at AccessMediaGlobal.com. Mark Janish, being the erudite aficionado host that he is, sees that the Lakers do have duplicate parts. So what you need to do is get rid of those duplicate parts, okay? Now, with the president of basketball operations being Magic Johnson, the mantra from El Segundo after they built the new training facility was, in Magic we trust. All right. So you come to free agency and you know you have ability to attract 2 free agents. Now, what the Lakers appear to have done is get the one, and the one was large in LeBron James, of course, having just led a subpar Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals, which we just saw, and swept by the Golden State Warriors. Now, the parts that I need to talk about, one of them is Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo had a pretty decent year. Last year, he averages about 7 to 8 assists. He can't shoot from the outside very well. That's not his game. His game is distribution, energy, and motivating some of his lesser motivated teammates, shall we say, getting them to perform at a higher level. Now, 779 games for Rajon Rondo. Lots of problems with Rick Carlisle, the later years of Doc Rivers. Very, very somewhat non-coachable, if you would say. And that's his rep. However, he did up his assists to 12 assists per game with the up-and-coming New Orleans Pelicans. And boy, does Anthony Davis have to be shaking his head. Anthony Davis, one of the brightest stars in the NBA that I've seen in the stretch for. capacity, and very much a 5 if necessary. But the fact of the matter is, the NBA game of 2018 does not require a center. It does require you to be able to shoot and have good footwork around the hoop as far as inside passing. But at the same time, the game has changed in the sense that teams now want guys that can shoot the three. Now, Rajon Rondo is not a shooter. I'm not counting on him to make three-pointers. I am counting on him to be a veteran leader. 779 games during the regular season, 105 in the playoffs. So he's a veteran. Now, that puts a little bit of pressure on Lonzo Ball. Okay, I'm not even going to say Lonzo Ball had a bad year. I do need to see his shooting percentage increase if he's even with the Lakers. Matter of fact, I'll go out and say there is a percentage possibility, maybe 30%, that because of the antics of his father, LeVar Ball, and all the stuff that's gone around regarding the Big Baller brand and $495 shoes last year and no shoes for the female population, which only constitutes about 51% of the United States market. Okay, that's not even including the world market. So he leveraged Nike and the Big Baller brand, and every chance he got, he was on the television, regardless of network, talking about that brand. And that's totally fine. But what is not totally fine is LeVar Ball calling for the ouster of Luke Walton. I believe Luke Walton is the correct coach for this group of Lakers. There have been coaches, Byron Scott, that was not a great fit for 3 years in Los Angeles. He was dispatched, and you can find him on Spectrum Sportsnet, the Lakers game channel across Southern California. And we'll be watching a lot of Byron Scott and James Worthy and crew doing a lot of analysis of LeBron James and this version, if you will, this group of Lakers that are going to play. So you have JaVale McGee, you have Lance Stevenson, who is another individual that I think Lance Stevenson just needs to decide he wants to play. And some of these parts right now don't seem to fit, but I think the long-term view is next year's looking very good for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers will probably win between 50 and 55 games. And the fact of the matter is that all the attention, similar to the Showtime era that began in 1979 with one Magic Johnson from 79 to about 90, the Showtime era was on with Michael Cooper, Norm Nixon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Magic Johnson, and other additional pieces. Now, what this is going to do is immediately put Los Angeles back on the map because, unfortunately, one of the things, on the plus side with LeBron James, I'm happy that he's grown into the person that he has become, a little more soft-spoken these days, a little bit more measured because he has children, a couple of homes, one in Brentwood that I know of. Brentwood, one of the higher-end areas of Los Angeles, driven through there more than a few times. Enjoy that area of Los Angeles, very high-end. He's remodeling a house in Los Angeles. So it makes sense that because LeBron James's goal outside of basketball is to be the first entity with a net worth of $1 billion with a B dollars. That's his goal. And what better place to do it than Los Angeles, Hollywood, access to agents, movies, production companies. And his crew, I have to say, Rich Paul and Clutch Sports have done a masterful job over the last 10 years of leveraging LeBron James and keeping the NBA public's focus on LeBron James. And then, of course, you see LeBron James in the endorsements, endorsing soft drinks and other products that he likes and he's familiar with, and we're all familiar with. And he is he was the heir apparent to Kobe Bryant in bringing a global feel to the game of basketball, and he's actually done that. Several Olympics, a couple of Olympic gold medals, a lot of minutes played for the national team, the Olympic team, and the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Miami Heat, and of course, now the Los Angeles Lakers. But for the Lakers, the Lakers are one of the few organizations I believe they do a pretty good job of handling the stage. They've been on the stage for a lot of years, multiple efforts at the championship in the 1960s with the likes of Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Gail Goodrich, and others. Okay. Bill Sharman, coach, Lakers for a long time. I mentioned Jerry West. I mentioned Elgin Baylor. I mentioned Gail Goodrich. And I'll say this. LeBron James, if he leverages Los Angeles correctly, he can leave. He can opt out after year 3. Year number 4 is a player option at $154 million. I want to put this out there. He might just opt out. He doesn't have anything to prove. Now, LeBron James, on the plus side, is better than the LeBron James on the marketing side in a sense. I realize that LeBron James wants to keep the public buzzing about him. Fortunately, he didn't go to the extreme that he did with Jim Gray in 2011 with the announcements. Everybody was looking for that, and he took his talents to South Beach for 2 titles. Okay. That's ancient history. Eric Spoelstra's team started out 9-8. That year, everybody was in panic mode at that point. At that point, then, LeBron James chose to go back to Cleveland, and some of the acrimony with Dan Gilbert had to be tied up. He wins the championship over a 73-9 Golden State team from the Bay Area of Northern California. 73-9, you lose the championship. You have a 3-1 lead. LeBron James brings the first tangible title to the Cleveland, Ohio area since Jim Brown in 1964. Okay? So there's a lot of history here, but I think we need to look at both the short term and the long term. Now, LeBron James sat with a VP of basketball operations at 9:01 Pacific time at his house, spent multiple hours with number 32, Earvin Magic Johnson. Now, what kind of influence will LeBron James have, and what kind of leverage will he have in bringing the type of guys that LeBron James wants to play with? Because if it was me, I would have serious reservations about playing 1 year with Lance Stevenson. Then JaVale McGee. And then Rajon Rondo, little firebrand that he is, he's not necessarily, Mr. Congenial on the court. Just ask a few coaches that he's alienated around the league. Very good skill player. Now, Rajon Rondo is either going to help or hurt Lonzo Ball. Now, Lonzo Ball just needs to keep improving and focusing on basketball, getting his strength back. But what the Lakers have done, they brought in Rajon Rondo, who can play. He's 105 games of playoff experience, 779 regular season games. That's either going to make Lonzo bitter or it's going to make him better. And I'm hoping for the latter because of the level of investment that Lonzo Ball has been made into by the Lakers. In other words, to say the investment the Lakers have made in Lonzo Ball, they need to make this work. You know what? Number 2 pick last year, 10, 7, and 7 overall, pretty much. Those are his stats. The thing with Lonzo Ball is he committed to the process of finding another shot. Because Magic Johnson, in previous interviews, locally and nationally over ESPN, Spectrum Sportsnet, which is the Laker flagship television channel, where all the Laker games are now seen across Southern California, including on my cable system, okay? That Lonzo Ball needs to decide what Lonzo Ball is going to do, independent of LeVar. Because there are guys in that locker room right now, as currently constituted under 1-year contracts, that are going to push Lonzo Ball to either be great. So it's going to either make him or it's going to break him. And we're going to see what happens with the aforementioned Lonzo Ball. Now, I do believe there is a slight chance that Lonzo Ball might be traded if you can get a Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi Leonard is an interesting case because Kawhi Leonard wants to be in Los Angeles, but at the same time, the San Antonio Spurs are asking for several draft picks. Kyle Kuzma not traded, not available to be traded. So essentially, the Spurs are asking for a high price. Now, that's a negotiating ploy generally to plea down. Now, if Kawhi Leonard sits out the season because he's really not happy in San Antonio, then the Lakers can afford to wait. I'm not, and that's why it's interesting that the 1-year contracts and any guys that come in and that are not signed by the Lakers will be signed to 1-year contracts, thus clearing room for next summer. Not this summer, but next summer. Now, training camp doesn't start till October, October 30th, somewhere in there. We're going to start to see some things. We're going to start to see some summer league situations. Mo Wagner, number 25 pick out of Michigan. Mo Wagner is an interesting, I think he could be a stretch 5. Stretch 5, that's to say he could play center, but it's really interesting to me that he's like Brook Lopez with a better shooting percentage and better three-point shooting. Now, Brook Lopez didn't have a bad season, but there's some definite holes in his game. He's a little finesse center. He kind of hangs out around the three-point line. Can shoot the ball, but the problem is the rebounding. Now, Mo Wagner is going to have to get in that weight room, 6'11", 230, 225. He's going to have to get in that weight room, but I know he can shoot. I've proven that over the last 3 years at Michigan and last year's finals appearance against Villanova. He came up in great shape and happy to have Mo Wagner at number 25. We are going to see the remaking of the Laker roster. So I just want to prepare all of Laker Nation around the world for a successful season next year and a playoff qualifying season. But I wouldn't expect this roster to make the playoffs. However, I will say this. LeBron James took a weaker roster in Cleveland to the finals this year. They got swept by the Golden State Warriors in Northern California, just, a few hundred miles from me, and we enjoy the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers, and so forth. And we'll be covering those. You can go to my NBA page, go to the NBA tab, and you'll see all kinds, social media, Twitter feed, and the continual RSS feed of NBA trades, rumors of trades, signings, non-signings, and all that other fun speculation stuff that a lot of people are into. It's all out there for you. AccessMediaGlobal.com, 24/7. If I'm not providing programming, you can still enjoy those things. So what I want to let you know is I just want to prepare Laker Nation for 55 wins, 50 to 55. I think 55 and 27 is reasonable. That's a 20-game improvement over last year, okay? Expect the playoff drought to be broken, 55 wins, make the playoffs, and then whatever happens as far as the seedings in the Western Conference between Jimmy Butler and Minnesota and Damon Lillard, once again, a Bay Area product out of Oakland, and C.J. McCollum, Utah with Devin Mitchell, okay? Return, all those things. Utah, great coach. Quinn Snyder, Mercer Island, Washington product out of Washington State. Going to be in the mix. So it's going to be crowded, and it's going to be difficult for LeBron James. And I'm going to go out and predict that that LeBron James will put the Lakers in. They'll probably qualify, I'm going to say, in the 5th slot. They're not going to get home court because home court goes to the top 4. Expecting Houston, Golden State to occupy the top 2 spots. Expect some jockeying for the 3rd and the 4th position. At that particular point, I do not believe the Lakers will get home court. I do believe they will qualify in the 5th slot, anywhere between 5 and 8, depending on the strength of the continually strengthening Western Conference. In other words, everybody's migrating west, and that makes qualifying for those 8 slots in the playoffs. Now, what could happen, and this could be an answer to some of the NBA's problems, the reseeding. Usually the top 8 teams in each league make the playoffs for 16. There has been rumblings over the last season or two based on travel and a few other things that not the Lakers, but the NBA would want to go to a 16-seed format regardless of which conference. So you could have 7, 8, or 9 Western Conference entrants. Maybe you have 7 Eastern Conference representatives, but you will need a total of 16. So it's gonna be interesting to see if the reseeding does happen. I think there is some validity to it in the sense that most of the strength and most of the players are moving to the West Coast. It's in some cases tax prohibitive to be on the West Coast, but it is generally nice. I'd say about 250 days out of the year. The rainy season from November to March is only 4 months, and it's not like these guys are hurting. They want their families to be in warmer environs because really, you want to be in Cleveland in December, 15 below, snow on the ground, ice all over the roads. Really? And that's not to say Cleveland's a bad spot. It's not. But the Cleveland Indians have brought respect back to Cleveland. The suddenly performing Cleveland Cavaliers, making their presence known into the finals and stuff. There's a lot of good things about going in Cleveland, but one of the downsides of being Cleveland is weather. Anybody will tell you that. I mean, I don't have the strength at my age to be living on the West Coast, East Coast, and digging out of snow, and I prefer the warmer climes. So that is a decision that you make. Do you have the strength to shovel snow from November to perhaps April? Okay, that's just the reality of it. And this is not disparaging any of my East Coast listeners in the United States. The fact is, you get older, you can't deal with the cold as well as you once did. That's just due to age, time, and some of these things that time and age bring on, which is an inability to deal with some of the outward things. So, we're going to talk more about LeBron James, but I want to just set the tone that these one-year contracts, JaVale McGee, Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, and so forth, the Lakers are going to be fine because they're setting themselves up for an outstanding summer. Next summer, not this one that we're currently in. Summer of 2019, folks. Another max free agent will come to Los Angeles. All these guys, the Rondos, the Stevensons, the JaVale McGees, are going to be moved off the books, thus clearing cap space for the Lakers to do a lot of good things next year. So with that, I've waxed reasonably eloquently for the past 38 minutes or so. This is the From the Bench podcast for July 5th, 2018. You can go to Stitcher and Libsyn Radio podcast platforms. Download it. Android capable on Stitcher. You can go to accessmediaglobal.com on your phone. And I hope you're going to enjoy the rest of NBA free agency. I want to just say thank you to everybody who's been listening. This is a love of mine. I finance the site. I finance the podcast. I don't ask you to do anything but enjoy what's being presented. Hopefully, 2018 is going to be a great year for Access Media Global. But for right now, we have podcasts available. Richard Deitch, Jimmy Traina, World Cup, Coverage will continue until the end of the tournament. It's been quite a month. I want to thank everybody around the world for listening. My supporters who've been with me a long time. Blue Magic, Detroit Rick, my friend George Brady. Want to thank all you guys. Martin C. Kinrose, his brother Jeffrey. Want to thank you guys for supporting and hopefully loving the broadcast, loving the website. We appreciate everybody around the world, from Singapore to Germany to Switzerland to Namibia, Indonesia, the United Kingdom, and all around the world. France has been checking in regularly during the World Cup, and the French are going to be playing tomorrow. I believe it's Saturday against Uruguay. And last but not least, just for my French listeners, Edinson Colivani, striker on the other side of Luis Suarez for Uruguay, is not going to play, reportedly. Well, we're going to find out. But France, the 1998 World Cup winner, they have a legitimate shot, along with Uruguay, to get this done. And we'll see. But for right now, I'm Mark Janish, AccessMediaGlobal.com. Could be your source for all sports information. This podcast is produced by Mark Janish, hosted by Mark Janish, and brought to you exclusively by AccessMediaGlobal.com and Mark Janish. For now, take care. God bless you. Salam alaikum. And may you have a great, great sports day.